without further ado, let me pass it over to Vince. Vince, thank you for being here. And
I'm absolutely tickled pink to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me along. And I am here this evening to talk with you about Go Kits and Go Kit building and design considerations for them. So in this presentation, I'm going to focus just a little bit on the equipment and a little bit on the comfort aspects because the world of operating away from home contains a whole lot more elements than I've got time to spend with you today. I'm Vince Dion, VE6LK, and I've been operating portable for about 20 years. I'm going to tour you through my kit that was born after my experiences primarily in the 2013 Southern Alberta floods, Canada's force of 55, a large natural disaster. You can read about those stories on my website and at several public service events where things went unexpectedly wrong for participants. So I don't see any Zoom windows. The only thing I'll have on one of my monitors is chat. You want to type your questions in as you think about them, and I'll be happy to review them at the end of the presentation. But I've got two questions for you all first. What's a Go Kit? Can I get like a few people to unmute and just tell me what's a Go Kit?
Well, for me, it is the KX3 I won at the December raffle a couple of years ago. A nice battery, a power mini from Buddy Pole, and a couple of wire antennas thrown into a Pelican case.
All right, someone else?
Well, for my recent vacation, I had too many suitcases full of stuff to set up portable where I went. But it's also this little thing you ride with the four wheels and you steer, you know?
Yep.
No, that's not Go Kart, Go Kit, David, sorry.
Yeah, Go Kit, yeah.
You take one more?
Yes, please.
Okay. I volunteer for emergency communications for Cupertino and the county of Santa Clara. So to me, a Go Kit is really kind of divided into a couple of ways. A 2-hour Go Kit where you may be deployed to be a communicator for 2 hours, but you need to have, extra batteries and whatnot. You could be deployed a little bit longer than that. Then we have what's called a 12-hour or an extended Go Kit, where you definitely need to have supplies that cover not just communications, but also power, weather, all weather, whatever you need. And well, of course, some training, but that's different. But anyway, that's kind of what I look at as for Go Kits. So hopefully that helps.
That's great. No, that's great. Thank you so much. So, there's a joke that goes in the ham radio community that says if you ask two hams for an opinion or an answer, you're going to get 5 answers. And I'm sure you might have heard that before in different ways. And so tonight, thank you for proving that true. I get different answers to what seems on the surface to be a simple question. So we're going to talk about that a bit. And then, what's a Go Kit used for? And I could do the same exercise with the question, but I'll spare you the trials and tribulations of doing that. Everybody has a different purpose what their Go Kit is for, and just those 3 answers proved that out as well. So let's go into an overview of what I'm going to talk about tonight. I'm going to talk about who the heck I am, so that you know where I come from. I'm going to talk about Go Kit types. And I'm going to talk about what's in a Go Kit, what's your purpose, and what's in my kit. I'm going to start by focusing on Go Kit design considerations. So in my day job, I'm a senior project manager in IT and healthcare, and my life is all about building processes and checklists and defining requirements to make sure that the product that our end users get matches their needs, right? So that's the point of view I come from. But look, there's so many options available to you. It's my hope by the end of this presentation, you're going to gain some ideas for the kit of your own. Now, periodically through the presentation, there'll be a checklist up on the screen. Please feel free to grab a copy of that or take a photo of it. I'll distribute a PDF of slides a bit later on without the photos, because it keeps the file nice and small so that you have a copy for yourself. For me, I began to be interested in radio at age 7. My dad's cousin, Uncle Al, VE3AND, was quite well known in the VE3 community. He was very busy in broadcasting as well, but it took me a while to get my license because of reasons. And so I licensed at age 40, about 20 years ago. I do pre-pandemic 6 or 12 public service events a year, depending on what my schedule is. I love doing them. But my very first event was for me a tremendously fulfilling learning experience. Felt like a train wreck at the time, let me tell you. I'm certified in incident command system at level 300. Level 400 in my work schedule keep getting in the way of each other. I have to work on that. I'm the ARES, or Auxcom, as now the Radio Amateurs of Canada is calling that organization, assistant for the Alberta Foothills area. So that covers a big swath of land south of the city of Calgary and a fair chunk of the way down to the U.S. border with Montana. As Doug pointed out, as Rob pointed out, I'm a podcast team member with the Ham Radio Workbench. I often say that I'm the layabout, and I feel like the dumbest guy on the crew, which means I get to hang out with some really cool people and learn a whole bunch of stuff, and it pushes my envelope, which I really enjoy. In my club, the Foothills Amateur Radio Society, and there are 2 of them in North America, if you go looking, I help out with repeaters and projects in our club. We have a repeater network that spans about 28,000 square miles. And in Canada, that's a large network. Down in the States, of course, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to some things like the Cactus Intertie and such. I build stuff for my radios to make my hobby more enjoyable. That's what I really like doing. And when I'm not talking about ham radio, which is, according to my spouse, almost every waking hour of the day, I go scuba diving and I pick up a guitar to kind of round out what I do for fun. So let's start out with the basics, some Go Kit types. But first, we asked about the definition. If you ask 3 guys a definition of a Go Kit, you're going to get 7 answers, right? So what I did was I trolled the internet and I found some photos. Whiskey Alpha 4 Alpha is there on the photo. It sounded like somebody recognized him as I put this slide up. He's won awards for this kit. It's a really interesting scratch-built kit, and it serves his need nicely. And so there's all kinds of Go Kit types. But Go Kits fall really into 2 main categories. There are those that fit into some sort of a bag and those that fit into some sort of a box. I'm oversimplifying here, but just stick with me for a minute. So a bag, like a backpack or a camera bag or a laptop bag, or a little satin bag with a tie on the top for some of these really small radios, right? And then those that fit in a box of some sort. A 19-inch rack mount musician's case, like a Gator case, or a plastic suitcase, or something that was built to suit the cause. And I see several photos of those as I do research around different types of Go Kits on the internet. And typically these are homemade wooden construction. Some of the more elegant ones, like Bob's, are metal construction. There's 2 subcategories of kits. They're battery powered or they're grid powered. So there's all kinds of things we can say about what goes in a kit. But before I get into that, here's some great photos of kits from my friend Thomas K4SWL in the upper left corner. You can find his YouTube channel, learn all about portable operating from his point of view. He says he's got the world's most boring YouTube videos. They're like watching grass grow. He turns on the camera in one position, and he talks about his activation, and you see his activation as he does it, and you hear his thoughts as he's doing the activation. And he's got quite a following. He's a super nice guy, very smart man.
It's all unedited. It's fun to watch.
It's all unedited. It's live stream of consciousness stuff. Yeah, it sure is fun to watch. And some other kits here. The kit top center from the Philippines. And I don't remember where the kit bottom center is from, but anyway, kits take different shapes and sizes, right? But all kits have at least these items. As somebody said, it's my Elecraft, my battery, my antennas, my Pelican case, right? So they contain a radio and they contain power distribution. But beyond that, you're going to need some stuff, some antenna supports, whatever that looks like, a feed line, power cables. You got to plug the stuff in, manuals for your gear. Please, for the love of ham radio and for the love of Hiram, please bring manuals to every event that you do, because it's when you're at that event or at that activation that you're going to forget how to do something, and just bring your manual. Life, it goes way easier that way.
Yeah, the nifty mini manuals are a good fill in for that stuff.
Any manual beats no manual. The number
Oh,
of times
yeah.
I've had an event participant come to me and say, do you know how to do a XYZ CTCSS tone on this Motorola radio I've never heard of?
No.
No, I'm sorry, I don't. Where's your manual? Anyway, some kits have these things too. They have more than one radio. They've got a microphone. And you're going, wait a minute, radios always have mics. They don't always have mics. Some people don't like microphones. They prefer a key. So some kits have a CW key. Some have a digital interface. Some have a computer, a power meter, an antenna tuner, external speakers. Mine has external speakers because I find those speakers inside my particular Yaesu radios to be lacking in a lot of ways, as is typical of a mobile form factor radio. They've got a battery, a charger, maybe a solar panel. And then there's stuff to make your life easier. I call these my lifesavers. Pencil, pen, Sharpie, Sharpie brand markers, except no substitutes, a clipboard, a notebook, a highlighter, 3M painter's tape. I'm going to cover all these in detail a bit later on. A water bottle, a coffee mug, a fuel bar, poncho. A poncho is good for more than keeping you dry. It keeps your equipment dry as well, or it can be rigged up as a sunshade in a pinch, right? Fresh clothing. Please do not underestimate the value of bringing dry socks wherever you go when you're doing long times on your feet. Your feet will thank you. There's nothing that makes a person more miserable than miserable feet. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So look, I'm a real strong supporter of building for purpose. It's about the basics of setting your goals and building towards them. On screen are the photos from various sources and for various purposes. Upper left looks like a portable repeater on the right-hand kit. Center left is one of those homebrew wooden boxes. The bottom photos are from Thomas. The right center is one of the Gator cases. And then at the top right, looks like somebody's built that into some sort of an ammo box of some sort. So first off, define your purpose. Now, these are one of the checklists that you might want to grab a copy of or screen grab if you're on Zoom. Why do you want a Go Kit? So all of these options are just samplings of things to ask yourself before you pick up a screwdriver or go hit buy it now on DX Engineering's website or HRO's website. You know, pick your favorite. And all the things on this page really drive out the rest of your limitations, which I'm going to cover off shortly. So why do you want a kit? What's the purpose? Are you going camping or POTA? Do you do events? Do you do MCOM or OXCOM support? Where are you going to use it? On top of a picnic table, on top of a mountain? Are you going to use it indoors in an emergency operations center? What frequencies are you going to operate on? HF, V or UHF? What modes will you operate? Will you operate CW, voice, digital? What operating power level will you run at? 5 watts, 100 watts, more? I saw a kit the other day. Somebody sent me a photo of their kit in 2 Gator cases, and the upper case was a high power auto tuner and a 600 watt amplifier.
Whoa.
And you know, didn't Bill Gates say 100 watts is enough for anybody? That's my opinion anyway. Your mileage may vary, and that's okay too. What's the purpose for your QSOs? Is it casual, like POTA or SOTA? Is it a contest where, you know, you really want the points? Is it MCOM, where the message must get through? All of these things are purpose-based. You can ask all kinds of questions around this, but the idea is to define your purpose. Okay, stick with me for a minute. Define your electrical requirements. Here's another checklist to grab a copy of. How are you going to power your gear? How big is your gear? So what's your source of power? Mine is primarily designed to run on commercial mains. However, I have a 50 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery pack that I built up as well. So what's the source of power? Commercial mains? Is it generator? Is it battery? Is it solar? Your operating power level comes into the electrical requirements, of course. How long are you going to be operating? This is a key piece. Are you going out for a few hours? Do you need to go out for an unlimited amount of time because you don't know? And how far away is that power? Is it close by or distant? If it's distant and you're running on commercial mains, you might want to bring some extension cords, right? So let's take a bit of a sidebar and do the math for a battery. This is one of those topics that baffles most people, but really it's fairly straightforward to do the math for this. So we're going to make an assumption that so first, before we go into the math, remember your manual, the thing that I said you should always carry with you when you leave home. When you open up your manual, you're going to see in the specifications what the power consumption figures are. And those are the manufacturer's rating, and they're possibly a little too liberal. But at any rate, if they're a little too high, that's okay, because at the end of the day, if you're not using all that power, you got a little extra left over if you're running on battery. So that's all right. But you've got to open up the manual and do the math on those numbers. So this isn't meant to be a full story on batteries and battery chemistry, because that's another topic. But it doesn't really matter. If I'm running a Yaesu FT8900 rig, and I own 2 of those because 2 is 1 and 1 is none, as the military say. If I'm running on 2 meters at 50 watts, I'm a busy event net control station. I'm talking 40% of the time. I'm listening 60% of the time. The assumption is I'm there for 8 hours. So the manual says my transmit current is 8.0 amperes and my receive current is 0.8 amperes. So let's do the math to get to amp hours. If I'm transmitting 8 hours, 40% of the time times 8 amperes, that's simple math of 8 times 8 times 0.4, 25.6 amp hours. Now, add in the receive. 8 hours, 60% of the time, 0.8. And when you add those two up, it's just shy of 30 amp hours of battery required. Add a battery or add some charging to allow for overtime or cold weather voltage sag. I know those of you down in California don't understand what cold weather is, but up here in the frozen Canadian North, as most people like to think it is, when it gets cold, batteries become problematic. That said, this afternoon it was 64 Freedom units as I was working on a dipole in my backyard, so it's not all that bad. But you've got to add up the power consumption of all the devices in your kit, not just your primary radio. If you've got a little creature comfort device, like I've got a little fan that blows air on me because some of the rooms I sit in are kind of stale and that bugs me. You got to add all of those things up to come to your total power consumption figure. Now, the other thing is you need to be aware that duty cycle of the radio and when it's pulling that transmit current factors into it. So FM and digital and CW, when you're transmitting, they're 100% duty cycle, and AM is the same transmission envelope, but sideband isn't, and sideband is less. And in blue here, I've got my rules of thumb, which carry me pretty well. They could be debated, but that's up to other experts to do that. These get me close enough in the ballpark when I'm doing my power consumption math. Now, if you're just operating off 120 volt mains, you just need enough of a 120 volt to 12 volt power supply to run all your devices concurrently. My kit has 2 transceivers in it. It's about to have a third, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But I can't transmit on more than one at a time. So I just need the peak consumption to size out my power supply. So your purpose is going to determine, remember where I was saying, what's your purpose about all this? Your purpose is going to determine the size of your gear and therefore your kit. There's some things to consider when you're thinking about the mechanical or the physical limitations of your gear or yourself. How big do you want it to be? One-hander, tiny, luggable, needs a crew of roadies. How much is it going to weigh? 3 pounds, 10 pounds, 50 pounds? What's its form factor? A small bag, a backpack, a suitcase, a dedicated vehicle, a set of pallets. And where are you going to set it up? You're going to set it on a table? Can it sit on the ground? Do you wear it on your body? All of these things determine the mechanical requirements. Okay, so now I've filled your brain with a list of how to determine your requirements. So let me share my requirements first, and then I'm going to take you on a tour through my kit that meets my requirements, and some photos to illustrate it and show you what's inside it. I've got some photos here up on screen. You'll see the kit in the upper left corner as I would have it in the operator's position. In the lower left is my dipole that I use, my fan dipole that I use for glamping. I don't camp, I glamp. That's glamorous camping if you're unfamiliar with the term. It's an 80-40-20 fan dipole. It usually runs as an inverted V. You can see my the back end of my RV in the center photo. The mast goes up 30-35 feet. And then lastly, a typical setup when I'm at an event with all of the trimmings of running net control. So my design requirements, yours will be different, and that's okay. Here's mine. I run indoors. I'm usually the guy in EOC, or I'm doing logistics or net control for an event, or I'm glamping. Or lately, I've discovered POTA, which is a whole other story. I'm running 120 volt mains. For me, my kit running 12 volts is optional. It's just in case. And because my power supply uses power poles, and because every single radio I own uses power poles, I can disconnect from the power supply in my case and get to my battery pretty quickly. The frequencies I need to cover when I am doing events or POTA or Auxcom support are everything from 80 meters to UHF. And I have done those in all of those cases. I operate phone, CW, and digital, although I'm the first guy to say that I'm terrible at CW. My operating power level is up to 100 watts. My purpose is to support an event, to do disaster or Auxcom support, or to simply enjoy the outdoors. For me, I have must-have items. So I harnessed my Kepner-Trigo methodology, the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. That's another way you can evaluate what has to be in your kit. So my must-have items are multiple concurrent V and UHF VFOs. The military has this expression about redundancy. 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And when I'm operating as net control for a high-speed rally sport event, and I do several of those a year, not only do I have 2 radios, we have 2 operators with 2 radios. So we are fully redundant, and each one of us can carry the load of the event if we have to. But by having 2 operators, we actually get like a break during the day. We don't have to go continuously, unlike the competitors. Must-have items for me are an externally amplified speaker and a headphone distribution amp, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And one of my physical limitations is I'm a guy with a bad back, and so each piece in my kit must be 1-arm carryable and rugged for transport. So I don't want to have to baby this thing while I'm moving it around. I want to be able to put it in the back seat of the truck and bump up a hill to set up a site if that's what I need to do. And remember, I'm one of the guys who goes off and does repeater work, and frequently in southern Alberta, those repeaters are located at the end of pretty bumpy roads on top of hills. So here's an in-depth tour over the next several slides of my kit. Here's what it looks like sitting in front of me. Imagine some cables coming out of the radios. I didn't set it up with cables and turn it on for the photo. But typically those antenna cables and the power cables go up to the ceiling. And you'll kind of wonder why about that, and you'll see why in a minute. And there's some antennas I didn't set up for the photo. My kit is primarily housed in Pelican cases, pretty much because that's what I had on hand, and one Anvil Road case to carry my extra items around. My office supplies, the aforementioned Sharpie markers and 3M blue painter's tape that you're going to hear me talk about several times. So here's an elevated view taken from the overhead, and I'll go at it from left to right. There's a lot going on here, right? I have 2 Yaesu VX7 handhelds, and I have a couple other handhelds, but the VX7s are really my workhorses. They take a lickin' and keep on tickin', as the old Timex commercial used to say. They are die-cast aluminum cases, and I see people holding them up on the Zoom call off the corner of my eye. If one of them has flown out of my backpack after I forget to zip up the side pouch, and lands 8 feet later on a concrete floor, and I pick it up and wipe the dust off it and keep going. I try not to do that often, of course. Anyway, I've got a drop-in charger for my VX7s. I have an external speaker. I've got a Creature Comfort device, one of those little fans. It's a USB 5-volt style fan. You get them in any computer store. I've got a power distribution strip. Moving over to the right-hand case, my 120 to 12-volt power supply is down underneath the checker plate you see there. I use checker plate because that's what I had available to me at the time. There's no particular reason for that. I get asked that question a lot. And I've got a second external speaker for the second transceiver. And then you can see the 50 amp hour LiFePO 4 battery. If that looks like a Goal Zero battery pack, if you've got a keen eye, that's because it used to be. and it got hollowed out. And that was a build project I overtook last winter. You can read about that on my website if you're looking to build your own LiFePO4 battery. I'm not the expert. My buddy who lives nearby is, and we both built one together. Coming along the bottom from left to right, I have a WinLink to go kit. So in this part of southern Alberta, we have UHF digipeaters off to a WinLink gateway, and so this is there's a 5-watt commercial data radio, and they're usually used for SCADA applications. And there is a Cantronics KPC3 is now in the kit. I've got a spare set of power cables. I have a spare 19-inch rare earth mag mount antenna, so I can grab this box and go. It's live all the time at my house. That's how I do my WinLink all the time. I don't telnet it in because that's like phoning it in. I've got that headphone amp. And so that headphone amp solves a problem for me. When I'm at an event, I bring headphones with me. And when I'm at an event like Rally Sport, frequently the room of 7 people becomes a room of 15, and it gets really loud. And I hate to screw on my lumberjack voice and tell people I can't hear the radio. So instead I put the headphones on. But the side effect of that is the people in the room no longer can hear the radio. So the headphone distribution amp plugs into my VN UHF transceiver, and there's an independent volume control for my headphones and for the external speaker. So people can hear what's going on around me, and I don't have to hear the room. It solves 2 problems at once. I then have an LDG Z11 Pro 2 auto tuner, and once again, accept no substitutes. I'm a big fan of LDG. They have amazing customer support. I have a SignalLink sound card. You could use any sound card you want. That's just what I happen to have on hand. And then I've got in my Go kit an FT8800. It's a dual band and cross band radio. Yes, I own one of those and 2 8900s, which is the quad band version. And I own a pair of Yaesu 857Ds. One of them sits in the truck all the time with an 8900. And I have an external LDG widget called the FT meter that gives me an extra output, an extra meter while I'm transmitting, which is helpful for digital modes. And then lastly, I have a computer. My choice of computer, and you probably heard George Zavaropoulos say the same thing, is a Panasonic Toughbook. And you're hearing a bunch of guys going out and doing activations and doing portable work saying Panasonic Toughbook. And the cachet that goes with it is you can run a tank over this thing and it'll keep running. For me, the choice as an IT guy was simple. I just wanted one that, once again, could bounce around in the back of my truck as I was going someplace, and I didn't have to worry about babying it while it got there. For me, all of this kit replicates my home setup. So I don't have to think about using a different radio in the heat of the battle. I can just do what I do normally. So there's a similar software load on this laptop as there is on my radio desktop. Looking directly down inside the case, if you lift that checker plate out, you'd see that I carry an assortment of RF adapters, BNC to UHF usually. I've got some short RG400 style jumper cables. If you're unfamiliar with RG400, it's the diameter of RG8X with loss characteristics between that of RG8X and LMR400. So it's better than RG8X, but not as good as LMR400. So that becomes a good compromise when I'm running VHF and UHF instead of running out RG8X 100 feet as I've had to do sometimes. I've got some 12 volt to USB cables. I've got a CAT cable to interface to my HF radio. I've got the 12 volt power supply. I carry 5 and 10 foot, 1 inch wide flat style cables used for grounding. These are terminated with alligator clips. So I can get 5 feet, 10 feet, or 15 feet of grounding for my station if I need it. I have 2 external speakers. I've got the Creature Comfort device, a headphone extension cable. I carry a dual band mag mount antenna inside each of these cases because I have 2 transceivers. And you can see a spot where I've marked out where the FT meter goes. So this keeps everything nice and neat and tidy for me when I need to set it up, and it's all self-contained. And the one rule that I always follow is I never borrow from this kit. If I do borrow from this kit, I don't close this kit up until I put that piece back. It's been a long time since I've had to borrow from this kit. Now, I didn't get here overnight either, right? this kind of accumulation takes a little bit of time. So be reasonable about that with yourself. But if you borrow from your kit, geez, put it back. You have to do that. The kit takes me 5 minutes to set up, not including antennas. It doesn't take much time at all. And I just retooled the kit, and I don't have photos to show you because I only did it last week. Here's a checklist to take a copy of. So look, I'm not doing SOTA activities with this kind of a kit list. As a matter of fact, I just said this week on a live stream that I'm in shape. My shape is round. That does not lend itself to SOTA. Lends itself more to POTA. But you know, SOTA is not my purpose. I carry 3 pieces of that RG 400 feed line, and I carry spares of other stuff. And I carry 50 foot because that's a convenient length. I carry the fan dipole I showed you earlier. I carry a Comet multi-band coil loaded vertical and a tripod. It works good in a pinch. It's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it works good in a pinch. I carry a Diamond X50 VNU HF antenna. That's not the smallest one they make. It's just one up from that, but it requires almost no assembly time beyond putting the ground radials on. And I carry that that military style push-up mast, some guy ropes, some stakes. That's all part of a kit. I carry 120 volt extension cables. I carry 2 sets of headphones because I don't know what I'm going to be listening for. My Sony headphones are cushy. They're the Cadillac headphones with nice big ear cuffs on them, much bigger than the ones I'm wearing tonight. But sometimes I need my Heil Pro 7s because I want the boom mic in front of me instead. I don't find them as comfortable as my Sonys for long periods of time. But then again, when I stop to think about it, I'm not wearing headphones for more than 3 or 5 hours at a time. I carry a CW key, maybe 2 with me, depending on my mood, I guess. I carry a Panasonic CF53 Toughbook. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. And then I carry problem solvers. And the problem solvers are really the bread and butter of my kit. You've heard me say already a few times, accept no substitutes. 3M, blue, painter's tape. Don't buy anything else. This stuff won't take paint off a wall. It won't leave glue behind on a window. And so in one of the photos you saw, I had a whole pile of stuff stuck up on the window doing net control for Rally Sport. And those are all the maps and the schedules and all the information I needed to do logistics. And I took it off the window at the end of the weekend, and I didn't have to worry about that I dirtied a window. I carry an assortment of Sharpie brand markers because they just simply work. I carry all kinds of writing sticks, paper, clipboards. I carry multiple clipboards with me because I never know quite what I'm going to need them for. I carry dollar store carabiners. Buy the cheap ones. You don't need something to hoist you up a mountain. You need something to hold a piece of feed line. I'll show you that photo in a minute. And I carry Lee Valley Tools rare earth magnetic hooks. So I understand Lee Valley is not a brand that you may be familiar with in America. Suffice it to say, if you find a neodymium magnet-based hook, and I'll show you a photo of that in a minute, it'll suffice. Here in Canada, the only place I can find those that are any good, that I don't throw them out because they fall off the whatever I'm hooking them onto, is from Lee Valley Tools. I carry a set of hand and soldering tools with me because I am frequently in a position where communications must get through and stuff must work. And people know that I've got a little bit of technical skill, so they tend to fall to me anyway. I carry extra feed line, I carry extra whips, and I carry an analyzer. Currently, it's a Rig Expert. It's changed over the years, but I carry an analyzer with me. Really doesn't matter what kind of analyzer, as long as it covers the bands you're interested in. So those are my problem solvers. So here's a little bit more detail from left to right. That headphone amp that you've seen before, now it's up close. One of the channels, I circuit hacked it to add this LM317 module I found 5 for $3 on eBay. And it delivers that output to one dedicated channel for an external speaker, which I clearly marked so you don't plug in headphones and hurt your ears. In the center, wow, that's a bit of a story. That's the dumpster repeater story. Remember all those extra antennas and that extra feed line? My primary repeater failed predictably near the end of the day at the Big White Winter Rally, which is located an hour outside of anywhere on a ski hill. And predictably at the end of the day, because it had done that the year before and the year before that, they've since replaced the repeater. They still are baffled why it was failing 7 hours into a heavy use day, but at any rate, that doesn't matter. So when the output of the repeater failed, nobody could hear me. yet everybody was within 5 miles of me, but they were down a hill. And I knew I had already tried to flip my radio to reverse and nobody could hear me. So very quickly, we took the snow shovel and we cleared a spot. And we dropped a mag mount out and deployed 100 feet of feed line to the mag mount. And I christened this the dumpster antenna. And I got on the output of the repeater and turned the power up to 50 watts. And I told everybody to flip. This is net control. The primary repeater has failed. Will you please flip over to the backup repeater? And I repeated the message 3 times. And my co-operator was taking check-ins on the backup frequency as soon as I made that announcement. We lost about 10 minutes on the event. It was critical at that time of day because the sun was setting and the competitors weren't set up for nighttime driving. So it avoided the cancellation of the last stage of a competitive event where there's a little bit of money involved, I believe, for the competitors. And then lastly, one of the problem solvers, those rare earth magnetic hooks and the dollar store carabiners make excellent cable management. This is how I get my cables up and out of a building. And you remember me saying earlier that my cables typically come down from the ceiling. Well, that's so I don't have to put gaffer tape on them on the floor and have people trip on them or worry about the dielectric getting crimped when somebody, rolled a heavy cart full of something over top of it. Instead, I stick them up to the ceiling. Well, how do we get them on the ceiling? Well, this particular photo, I was in an ice or hockey arena, and there were steel beams, but any fluorescent lighting fixtures probably got some steel in it, some iron in it that you can stick a magnet on. Any sort of a ceiling, a drop tile ceiling, the T-bar ceilings, they all use ferrous materials in them, and a magnet will stick to them. And it makes a super easy way to bundle a few cables up to get it out the door. This is why I call them problem solvers. So from left to right, a poncho or an umbrella, or in this case, one of my chairs while I'm camping, turned up on its side. It provided some shade from the hot sun for my equipment while I was glamping on doing picnic table stuff. The inside of my RV in the lower left has got a desk where I can set up the kit. Now that I've simplified the kit, I'll take up less room on the desk, which I'm good about. The mast center photo deployed with the inverted V antenna and the VHF, UHF antenna on top. Yeah, I get a few looks in the campgrounds when I do it, but it generally starts off a nice conversation about what's ham radio. And then how do I get my feed lines from the inside to the outside? You all remember these things called telephone lines? And my RV happened to be equipped with a jack in it on the outside and on the inside for a telephone line at the desk. So instead I pulled that out and I ran 3 chunks of cable, and that's a waterproof fitting on the outside. And those are just simple BNC connectors because that's what I had on hand. And they're small enough to work and easy enough to convert between. Talk about the computer for a minute now. So now my IT side comes out. It's a Panasonic Toughbook CF53 Mark IV. Wow, that's a mouthful. It's about 500 Canadian dollars on the used market, about $4.25 US. There's plenty of them out there. But I needed a Windows 7 based supported ruggedized computer with a genuine serial port to take along for field diagnostic work. That's my primary purpose for this. GoKit is secondary. So it's got a long battery life. It's not a speed demon. It doesn't have to be super fast, but I need that serial port, and I need Windows 7 so that I can virtualize Windows XP and MS-DOS for some of the old repeater radios I still have to support and program. And this was how I could do it. So for me to determine those needs and then pick a product, I had to find a product that I could still download drivers for that old operating system. And this was the one that hit the sweet spot of Vince can afford it, and it ticked off all the boxes. What's on the computer? Windows 7. So I can do all that virtualization and program my radios. I run virtual desktops on this. You may or may not be familiar with virtual desktop. If you're a Mac user, you know what they are, like I am. So I can run 4 desktops here, and I don't have to minimize and maximize stuff. It just makes my life a bit easier. What else is on the computer besides programming stuff for old radios? WinLink Express, Vera FM and HF. It's also configured to use with my WinLink to go kit. Digital mode software, Ham Radio Deluxe DM780. I still can't get away from it, even though I try. FL Digi, FL Rig, WSJT. There's SDR software for my SDR Play radio. TNC management software, and it's my field diagnostic tool. So that's what's in the computer. Again, your mileage may vary, but you have to think about what you need the computer to do for you and what form factor you want, how heavy you want it to be, and how you're going to power it. And it's all the same discussions as you thought about with your gear. So I mentioned my friends Kepner and Trigo earlier. I don't really know Kepner and Trigo, but Kepner and Trigo is a great method to evaluate what are my must-haves and what are my nice-to-haves. I made that evaluation for every single piece of my kit. So use the Kepner-Trigo method. Evaluate your purpose, your locations for use, and your mechanical considerations. Because the purpose, electrical, and mechanical design elements determine your functionality and your kit's building points. A kit with a narrow focus is going to be super lightweight. However, a highly flexible kit will be, by necessity, anything but. There's a whole bunch more elements involved in operating away from home. This is just focused on the equipment and a wee bit on the human comfort aspects. I hope you found this interesting. I said I'd talk about my kit. I just rebuilt it. So if you recall, in the kit, there were 2 boxes to it. I had HF stuff on in both boxes, and that was getting to be a real pain in the tuchus to set up on a picnic table. And so just last week, before I went out and did a bunch of POTA activations, POTA-thon, we called it, me and a buddy went into backcountry for the day. I moved all of my HF stuff into one kit. And what's going to go in the other box? All my VHF and UHF stuff. So now if I'm doing an event, both boxes go with me. But if I'm just doing HF in the field, I just need to take one. And that lightens my load and makes my life a whole bunch simpler. So thank you so much for having me here this evening. You can find me on Twitter at VE6LK or my website, ve6lk.com. And you can read about all my projects and see all the stories and all the rest. At this time, I'll open the floor up for your questions, please.
Okay, we typically are going to take questions here at Cubberley's, and then we'll go over to Zoom so we don't get a whole bunch of doubles up. So
That's great.
anybody here at Cubberley have questions? Nobody? Nobody? Oh, we've got somebody.
Thank you for your presentation. It's great. My name's Leanne Weiland, K6WXO. You said bring your manuals. I didn't see your manuals in the kit.
That's terrible photography on my part. My manuals always travel with me. As a matter of fact, if I just reach down here in my bench, we can see all my programming cables and my manuals, and this bin goes with me. But hey, thanks for calling me on that. That's good.
Leave it to Leanne.
Anybody else here at Cubberley? Okay, so, I think Ben's got a question here.
Just quickly wondering how long it takes you to set up all your kit, and typically.
Typically, I can be on the air in 25 minutes. That includes hoisting the mast up and hoisting the antenna up. If I'm just doing the mast and something simple like an end-fed wire for HF, I can be on the air in 15.
Great. Okay, Ben, if we can go to full screen, and I'm going to ask everybody on Zoom if you could use the raise your hand icon. And that way I'll just pick some people. Anybody out there in Zoom land's got some questions?
W60H's hand is up. Is that what you mean?
Yes, you're up. Take it away, Dave.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation. So I recently came back from a 2-week vacation, renting a house Bayside, and I never know how big a patio I'm going to have to work with, how far away I'm going to be able to get the antenna from my operating position, what I'm going to use to anchor the antenna, et cetera, et cetera. So I always end up taking like way too much stuff.
I represent that remark.
Yes.
Okay. So any for example, I took a antenna with a shock cord whip, and I took my pack. These are the pack 10 or pack 12 with the little piece of metal that screw in together, and I used the lighter one because it was right next to a sidewalk, and I didn't want a heavy thing tipping over on people, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So Give me some words of wisdom, please.
Preparation is your friend. I talk about how I avoid the unexpected in another talk that I give. And Dave, one of the key things I do is I research the heck out of where I'm going whenever I get the chance. And how do I do that? Well, Google Maps is my friend. Google Street View is my friend. You can suss out an awful lot from a satellite view of a place, especially if you have a vehicle in the photo from the overhead that you can grab some rough scale from. And I say rough because it's never perfect, but it gives you some ideas. And it gives you some way to think about it. Street View is a wonderful thing to see what a patio looks like or what the elevation is from the roadway. So with those things in mind, and with that little bit of preparation, if you have the opportunity at a public service event to drive the event route beforehand, I always do that because I'm a very visual kind of a person. I need to be able to know what the intersection looks like to be able to guide people through a problem there. Many of the events I do, there's 50, 60 radio operators, and many of them have never been out before. So those are the kinds of tips I do to prepare. As far as being on point for deploy, I have a JPC-7, so that's the PAC-12's dipole cousin. I have that Comet HFJ-350. Lately, I'm messing around with little tiny NFEDs and 49-to-1s and super lightweight wire. As I'm goofing around with those, I was a dipole guy for years and years, and boy, dipole's just taken off a long time to string up, and an NFED goes up real fast. They come with their challenges too, though, right? So I carry with me an assortment, and that's how I manage it. I also carry with me an assortment of feed lines. Now, I talk about 50 foot as a length, but in the assorted bin, I have a single 100-foot length, and I've got multiple 25s. Do I have barrel connectors for them? Yeah, sure, because that way I can get 75 if I need it. So those sorts of things will get you there, and they'll get you set up and activated. Did you need all of it when you got there? Oh, heck no. The potathon that me and a buddy did in backcountry, we took a generator because we didn't know what we'd need. And it's a nice small generator, but still, we had it. We didn't need it. That's a good problem to have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. One thing I don't remember you mentioned, but turned out to be really useful. I have a common mode current blocker, a bunch of toroids on some coax. And a year ago when I did this, I had a really crummy signal till I figured out what it was, and I just wound the coax in a loop. But this time I took that, and I found that to be really useful.
Yeah, you bet. And the in between my HF tuner and my FT857 and the kit over my shoulder, I have toroids on a cable that I built. You can buy a cable commercially. Chameleon Products sells one with 8 or 9 toroids on it, and I'm sure you can get them from others too.
That's what I've got. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. Really appreciate the talk and the thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Thank you
Let's
very
give
much.
Vince a big hand. Thank you, Vince.
Yeah.
We did have a couple submissions here that brought here to Coverly. Here's a nice base setup, a smaller one, and this one here was my marine edition. So if I'm out in the bay, it has a marine radio. And then, of course, we've got this nice little
That's
jobby
Clark's
here
one.
from
Nice.
Clark. I think we saw that at Field Day, didn't we?
Yes, we
Was that
did.
yours?
Very nice.
Or was it a different rendition? Someone brought one. Cool stuff. And we'll talk more about this later. Let me pass it back over to Jim.
We have one more
Oh.
here.
Oh, we got some other stuff over here. What do we got going? Oh, I think Bo brought this in. It's not GoBox, but man, it looks impressive. Bo, you want to give us a heads up what this is?
Yeah, this is my Go bag. So this one is in the car and has all my prep kit. So I can do tracking and decoding. This is what I'm out actually looking for. These are recovered radio songs. This one came off of Mount Allison the other day. And then my most important bag, which is my actual Go bag, is this Camel Pack and bring in loads of water. And then this is directional UHF, Yagi, and attenuator to go with that. So I've got the mobile Go bag and the hike it wherever Go pack.
Wow, you guys are missing out. And of course, I brought the radio vest that we use for Parachute Mobile. I guess you can call it a Go box on a chest. I don't know. Quite a bunch of stuff. And anybody interested here tonight, I'll go over all that with you. Ooh, let's see what this is.
So I also brought a special handcrafted here by Noisy Kid, Kilo 6, Quebec Foxtrot Oscar, and it's his construction of the Mighty Wolf. So it's a dual band VHF, UHF. So looking forward to trying that at home. So he hand makes these with some great specs and just picked this one up. So there's a whole guide on it here if anybody wants to check it out as well. So thanks, Mike. Hey.